You are listening to Morning Edition on 89.3 WFPL. I'm Bill Burton, and it's time for us to take a look at the science behind the forecast as I am joined by Wave 3 meteorologist Tawana Andrew. Good morning, Tawana.
Good morning. Usually we're talking about kind of broad topics on this segment, but today we're kind of breaking down a little bit more what happened back on July 4th.
Yeah, last week there was a pretty ugly storm rumbling through the area, and a tornado touched down and did some damage in the Parkland neighborhood. But there was no warning for this tornado from the National Weather Service. So that's our topic today. Warnings from the National Weather Service and what kind of lead time is needed, what else is needed to be able to issue a warning like that. What do we need to know?
So just breaking down what happened that day. So on July 4th, we had a line of thunderstorms moving towards the Louisville metro area. There was a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag that was issued at 12:40 p.m. Eastern time for that storm moved into Harrison County, Indiana. So there was about a 20-minute lead time before an EF0 tornado with 85-mile-per-hour winds touched down just about north of Cordon around 1:05 p.m. So that tornado possible tag was on the severe thunderstorm warning as that tornado was moving through the Cordon area. Now, the actual tornado warning for that storm wasn't issued until 3 minutes later at 1:08 p.m. as it continued towards Floyd County. Now, that same storm started to weaken as it got closer to the Ohio River, so the tornado warning was allowed to expire at 1:23 p.m. The same thunderstorm, though, re-strengthened pretty quickly and then dropped a tornado in the Parkland neighborhood around 1:27. So there's a 4-minute window between when the tornado warning was allowed to expire and when that tornado dropped in the Parkland neighborhood. That was a EF1 tornado with 95-mile-per-hour winds, and it was only on the ground for about a minute. So that was very quick.
Yes.
That it moved in, caused all that damage, and then it was gone. So, of course, everybody wanted to know afterwards is why wasn't there a tornado warning for this particular storm? And the National Weather Service has specific criteria for severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings. For a severe thunderstorm warning, what you need wind gusts over 58 miles per hour and or 1-inch hail or reports of damage. So those are the three things you need for a severe thunderstorm warning.
And none of that was happening.
And none of that was happening at that time. Now, for a tornado warning, you need a thunderstorm with radar indication of significant low-level rotation in a favorable environment. So that part is important. Significant low-level rotation or a reported tornado. Neither of those things were happening at that time, so a tornado warning was not issued. Now, in the case where you can't issue a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning, what the National Weather Service will do, they will issue what's called an SPS, or a special weather statement. And those are for storms that are not quite severe, but may still have a negative impact. So for the Louisville office, the National Weather Service office here in Louisville, what they'll do is they'll look for wind gusts between 40 and 50 miles per hour, hail of about 1/2 inch or greater, or accumulating pea-sized hail or excessive lightning. Now, there was a special weather statement, but it was issued after the tornado had already touched down. So that's important to know. So as a meteorologist, we use a couple of tools to detect tornadoes. Well, first, we love when people report what they see. That is a very good thing to have the ground truth of what's going on. If we don't have the ground truth, we'll use the radar. And specifically, we're looking for what's called a tornado vortex signature. So this indicates concentrated rotation happening within a thunderstorm. And this is when we're on TV and we're showing you the pretty red and green colors, and we're talking about things moving towards and away from the radar. So red indicates winds flowing away from a radar site. Green shows wind flowing towards the radar site. So as I like to tell my Gen Z friends, red flags, you run away from it. Then you have red moving away from the radar.
Okay.
That's an easy way to understand.
I
When
got
you
it.
have when you have clusters of red and green values right next to each other, that typically shows rotation, indicating the potential for a tornado. Now, keep in mind, you can see that red and green next to each other and not actually have a tornado on the ground. The other thing that we're looking for on base reflectivity. So this is what we're typically showing you with the rain and thunderstorm moving through. We show precipitation using base reflectivity. A tornadic storm can appear with a hook shape or a hook echo.
Okay.
And we didn't quite see that showing up on the radar that day either. Keep in mind that radars complete their full volume scans every 4 to 6 minutes. Keep in mind, there were 4 minutes in between the tornado warning ending and that tornado touching down in the Parkland neighborhood.
Right.
So for the National Weather Service, shout out to Brian Newdorf, who talked to me about what happened on July 4th. And he said that they look for specific environmental conditions on days like that. And if there is a question or maybe a lack of support or confidence in a tornado actually forming, what they will do is issue a severe thunderstorm warning with the tag tornado possible. This is why we're always saying it's so important to pay attention to the severe thunderstorm warnings too, not just the tornado warnings. And he also noted that from the time that the circulation on radar was over Floyd County in Indiana, and then it diminished crossing over into the Ohio River and into West Louisville, was 3 to 6 minutes. So the circulation tightened right as it crossed over the river, and that was one scan, and then it was gone in the next scan. And it was a very weak, quick tornado signature. So that's not enough for them, based on the criteria, to issue a tornado warning. Now, it wasn't the only storm that day, by the way, that had those weak rotation signatures. And usually tornado warnings are not always issued in those scenarios. So there's not a lot of false alarms, because there's a lot of storms that can rotate without actually producing a tornado, but they'll show up with that rotation signature on a radar. And what Brian told me, he said that the scan before and during the tornado, there were several other weak signatures. In fact, about half a dozen other weak signatures.
Wow.
That didn't have a tornado or any severe weather. So these spin-ups are very tough. They don't last very long, and they're very difficult to forecast. So this radar can have a gap about 3 minutes in between the best scanning situation. And if a tornado like that happens only in a minute, develops in between scans, they can't see it. So they always recommend that everyone is weather aware on severe weather days, and the National Weather Service office in Louisville is excellent at reviewing severe weather events. And this is one severe weather event that they are going to review as well, especially since they technically did miss a tornado, and they're going to be using this as a learning tool to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And they can be a little bit better at relaying to the public what's going on weather-wise in an active weather situation.
Goodness. Well, at the very least, now we understand why there wasn't a tornado warning issued for that Parkland tornado last week. And we know this now. We have a better understanding of all of this thanks to the latest edition of Science Behind the Forecast with Wave 3 meteorologist Tawana Andrew. Thanks for the knowledge, Tawana.
Of course.